got an air fortress here. So you played it before? HAL made it? Kind of just looks like, you know, generic space shooter, but I mean, you might as well give it the benefit of the doubt. You know, you could find it could be a gem. You never know. You might as well just try it out. So let's go do that. So in Air Fortress, you play as spaceman Hal Bailman on a mission to destroy these evil living air fortresses that are on their way to his home planet. Oh, and the hero Hal is actually named after the company of the same name, and not to be confused with anyone else. So anyway, Hal blasts off to the first air fortress, of which there are 8 in total, and the game begins. At first, it looks like your average side-scrolling space shooter, with Hal flying on a little spaceship, or maybe it's like a space Sea-Doo. Just seems like your standard enemies for the most part, while you collect plenty of E's and B's that don't seem to be doing much now, but I'll explain later. You die in one hit and you can't run into any of the environment, but you have a few lives, and the first level shouldn't give you any trouble. Most of the enemies for now have simple patterns and die in a single hit, except for these rotating 3D-esque objects which take a few hits, but they don't move anyway. After a short while, the autopilot on your Sea-Doo takes over and you land on the surface. Either your guy's holding a gun or he walks like a zombie. You are now entering the air fortress. Yeah, that's right, the auto side-scrolling part you were playing was just the first section of the level. The bulk of the game takes place inside the air fortress on foot, or I guess you could say on jetpack. You're free to roam around as you please, and the controls here actually feel quite nice. Now this is where those E's and B's you collected earlier come into play. Depending on how many you collected, you start off with more energy and bombs. Bombs are pretty self-explanatory, just a stronger weapon. Energy, however, is more than you might think. Your jetpack, gun, and health all rely on your energy. You can shoot and fly as long as you have it, and it regenerates back to its base cap when you rest. When you get hurt, however, your base energy is lowered and continues to lower until you run out and die. Even walking drains some energy. But as long as you collected plenty of E's on the surface, you should be fine. And you can also pick up some here and there from enemies inside the fortress as well. The enemies in the first fortress are pretty easy. There are a few different obstacles, but you mostly run into these red and blue guys that sort of look like Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet. The red ones take one hit to kill and shoot infrequently, while the blue ones take a few hits and fire back more often. The way your own weapon works is pretty interesting too. Every shot you take has a recoil that sends you back a bit. You can use this to your advantage by shooting enemies and avoiding bullets at the same time. In other areas, however, you have to be cautious with this, as the walls may be covered in spikes. This fortress is pretty linear, just use the elevators and keep moving forward. Eventually you'll run into this little red fireball. It's got a lot of firepower and more health than the other enemies, so I'd say it's best to save your bombs for this guy, so you could take him out quickly. Shortly after this, you'll come across a great big fireball. No, that's not Sauron's eye, it's the thing powering the air fortress. He doesn't seem to have any defenses, so you just unload on him. Easy enough. Whoa. After you take him out, everything gets dark and super quiet with this ambient music that sort of reminds me of something out of Metroid. Spooky. Well, you just head to the right where your space Sea-Doo's waiting for you and fly out of there. First fortress down, 7 to go. As you get farther into the game, the exterior of the air fortresses begin to have more challenging enemy patterns and start putting the energy and bombs in harder to reach locations. They even start introducing some new enemies, including this big ship that takes several hits to kill, and these little annoying windmill things that will continue following and shooting at you. You'll also start to realize that the inside of the air fortresses aren't as linear as the first one, and as you complete them, they get harder and harder to navigate. I'm talking about forks in the road that lead to dead ends, and many elevator floors that contain nothing but enemies. And speaking of enemies, whoa, who's this guy? Is he supposed to be like an evil version of Hal or something?
Hello, me. Meet the real me.
Yeah, he's pretty stubborn, so sometimes it's just best to avoid him altogether, especially since he could just respawn. So this time, when you get to the end of the level, you'll realize that the end boss thing has defenses, and by defenses I mean a crap ton of things shooting at you. After destroying it, you may also notice that your Sea-Doo isn't waiting for you right after the boss. That's right, the exit of the fortresses aren't always near the boss room. In fact, they can often be on the other side of the entire place. Hopefully you found it before you beat the boss. Although, what's the rush, right? It's not like there's a time limit or anything. Wait, is the screen shaking? Okay, maybe there is a time limit. Better get out of here before I find out. So, while the fortresses have been a moderate challenge so far, things really start heating up at level 5. Like, seriously, you're less worrying about picking up energy and bombs at this point, and more worried about making it to the fortress at all. Luckily, there's some power-ups you can find that seem to come at random that can really help out. They either clear the screen of enemies, or make you invincible for a short while, except to the terrain, so don't touch that. If you do manage to make it to the fortress, you'll find out that the inside has gotten even harder than the outside. The amount of rooms has increased considerably and the enemies are more relentless than ever. At first I thought that these little guys were just making walls to block my path, but the stuff they leave behind will actually kill you. And not to mention this butterfly thing, he keeps following me from room to room and I can't seem to kill it. Seriously, leave me alone. This is definitely a game where a map would be very useful. Unfortunately, you'll have to make one yourself because the game doesn't provide you with anything. It's too bad it doesn't have a system like Zelda where you can find one, or maybe something where the rooms are slowly revealed as you enter them, like Resident Evil. Resident Evil was like that, right? Kind of? Well, overall, Air Fortress is pretty good. If there's something I have to complain about, it's probably the fact that no matter how many lives you have when you complete the exterior part of the fortresses, you only get one shot to beat the inside. If you lose, then you gotta do the whole outside part all over again. That may not seem like that big of an issue, but the levels do get pretty damn hard and maze-like after a while. In fact, while doing this review, I couldn't even manage to get past the exterior section of the final level. Man, I can't imagine what the inside's like. So, Air Fortress. You know, at first when I was gonna play this, I thought it was just gonna be like some generic NES game, you know, pretty mediocre, but it was actually pretty cool. The space shooting elements was just one part of the game, and there was a lot more to it than that. The difficulty does ramp up pretty quickly, but overall the gameplay itself is really fun. There is one thing I'm wondering about though. What would happen if you stayed inside of the Air Fortress after you destroy the boss? Let's find out. Getting kind of scared here. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Just thought I'd mention that my friend Benny is doing a fundraiser raffle type thing where you can win a rare NES game for helping out our buddy Dolly Popka. If you're interested, here's a link to his video for more details. Or if you just want to help in general, there's a link to the fundraiser in the description. Thanks for watching.